There are stories history tried to bury, whispers behind the velvet curtains of Graceland, and truths too explosive to be revealed in Elvis Presley's lifetime. He was the king of rock and roll to the world, but behind the fame lay a man surrounded by secrets of love, betrayal, power, and pain. For decades, these mysteries have remained locked away. Today, we open that door. This is Elvis Presley, secrets the world was never meant to know. To the outside world, Elvis Presley was larger than life. The glittering jumpsuits, the sold-out arenas, the screaming fans, it all painted a picture of a man untouchable, immortal. But beneath the crown of the king of rock and roll lay a fragile soul who often struggled with the weight of his fame. The world saw him as an icon. Very few saw him as a man. Born in a two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis never forgot the poverty of his beginnings, the memory of hunger, of watching his parents sacrifice everything, haunted him even in wealth. He bought Graceland not just as a mansion, but as a fortress, a place where he could keep his family close, shielded from the same struggles he endured as a child. Yet Graceland became less of a sanctuary and more of a gilded cage, a place where Elvis was both adored and isolated. Those closest to him often described a man torn in two. On stage, he was electric, playful, commanding. Off stage, he was introspective, even shy. He craved companionship, but also feared betrayal. His Memphis Mafia, the close-knit group of friends who traveled, worked, and lived with him, were both his family and his prison guards. They loved him, yes, but they also enabled his worst habits. Behind closed doors, Elvis's life was filled with prescription bottles, restless nights, and an unshakable loneliness. Elvis's charisma attracted millions, but it also made it difficult for him to find authenticity. Was a smile genuine, or was it meant to get closer to the king? Did a woman love him for who he was, or for who the world believed him to be? These questions plagued him, often leaving him restless. Even Priscilla, the great love of his life, could not fully break through the walls fame had built around him. What the public didn't see were the late-night confessions, the moments when Elvis sat at the piano alone, playing gospel songs through tears. He had grown up in church, and though the world crowned him the king of rock and roll, in his heart, he often saw himself simply as a sinner reaching for God. The fame, the wealth, the women, all of it, sometimes felt like a burden that pulled him away from the faith that once grounded him. This was the man behind the crown, vulnerable, haunted, and searching. The secret the world was never meant to know is that Elvis Presley, the symbol of unstoppable energy and joy, often felt small, fragile, and afraid. And it was this inner battle between the image of the king and the reality of the man that would shape the tragedies and mysteries still whispered about today. Elvis Presley was adored by millions, yet he often confessed to feeling unloved in the way he truly longed for. His romances filled headlines, but behind the tabloids and glitter was a man craving something deeper, something real. The world saw him as a heartthrob, but his heart carried secrets that few ever knew. His marriage to Priscilla Presley was iconic, but even that love was complicated. They met when she was just 14, a relationship built under circumstances that today raise questions. Despite the bond they shared and the daughter they brought into the world, Elvis's fame and lifestyle pulled them apart. What the public never saw were the endless nights when Priscilla felt like she was competing not only with the other women, but with the legend of Elvis itself. But Priscilla was not the only woman who carried a piece of Elvis's heart. There were others lovers whose names history only whispers about. Some were fellow entertainers, women who understood the pressures of the spotlight. Others were ordinary girls swept into a whirlwind of lights, music, and stardom. Yet almost all of these relationships shared a common thread. Secrecy. Elvis was a man of extremes. tender and gentle one moment, distant and unreachable the next. He would shower women with gifts, take them on magical trips, or play gospel at the piano just for them. But the closer someone got to Elvis, the more he feared being vulnerable. His soul bore scars, and rather than reveal them, he often built walls. There are stories of women who recall Elvis crying in private, confessing his fear of being alone, his exhaustion with fame, his yearning for someone who saw Elvis the man, not Elvis the king. These moments were never meant for the public eye. They were fragile truths, hidden away behind hotel doors and Graceland's heavy gates. Some claim he carried on romances with women who were never publicly acknowledged because they threatened his image. The Colonel, his infamous manager, was notorious for controlling what the world saw. To protect the Elvis brand, certain relationships were silenced, certain truths erased. It wasn't about love, it was about maintaining the myth. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of Elvis's love life was that he was never able to fully reconcile the man he was with the image the world demanded. He longed for a steady, nurturing love, but he was trapped in a lifestyle that constantly tore him away from it. Women adored him, but very few truly knew him. The forbidden love stories of Elvis Presley reveal a heartbreaking truth. The king of rock and roll was often the loneliest man in the room. He lived surrounded by people, yet his deepest connections had to be hidden, protected, or sacrificed for the sake of his crown. And so, while the world screamed his name, Elvis whispered his heart's secrets to only a chosen few, secrets that remained in the shadows long after the spotlight dimmed. If Elvis Presley was the king, then Colonel Tom Parker was the gatekeeper of his kingdom. To the public, Parker was Elvis's brilliant manager, the man who turned a young singer from Tupelo into the most famous entertainer in the world. But behind the scenes, Parker's dealings were far from clean. The price of fame, as Elvis discovered, was far greater than anyone could have imagined. Colonel Parker, whose real name was Andreas Van Queek, was a Dutch-born illegal immigrant living under a cloud of mystery. He had reinvented himself as a showman, a carnival hustler, and eventually the mastermind behind Elvis's rise. But his control over Elvis went beyond management. It was ownership. Every contract, every decision, every public move was filtered. Through Parker's iron grip, the Colonel negotiated ruthless deals, often favoring quick profits over Elvis's long-term artistry. One infamous example was the Las Vegas residencies. Elvis's performances at the International Hotel became legendary, but Parker locked him into contracts that left little room for creative freedom. Night after night, Elvis sang in the same city, while Parker collected enormous fees and side deals with the casinos. Fans adored the shows, but Elvis felt trapped, drained of the chance to tour the world or evolve his music further. The secrets the world was never meant to know include the true extent of Parker's greed. Historians later uncovered that Parker took a shocking 50% of Elvis's earnings, a staggering cut far above industry standards. Elvis was often generous to a fault, giving away Cadillacs, jewelry, and homes to friends and strangers alike. But behind the scenes, his fortune was being siphoned away by the very man who claimed to protect him. There was also the hidden truth of why Elvis never toured internationally. Fans across Europe and beyond begged for the king, but Parker quietly blocked it. Why? Because he himself had no legal passport. As an undocumented immigrant with a murky past, Parker feared exposure if he left the United States. Elvis, who longed to perform in London, Paris, and Tokyo, was kept on American soil not by his own choice, but by Parker's paranoia. Parker's influence extended to Elvis's films as well. Between the 1960s and early 70s, Elvis starred in dozens of movies, most of which were critically panned. These projects were often chosen not for artistic value, but for quick financial return. Elvis knew the scripts were weak, the roles repetitive, but Parker insisted. The king of rock and roll, who once revolutionized music, was reduced to singing formulaic songs in forgettable films dotting private moments. Elvis grew resentful of Parker's stranglehold, yet he also felt bound by loyalty and fear. Parker had taken him from obscurity to stardom. Breaking free seemed impossible. By the time Elvis realized the full cost of this partnership, it was too late. The Colonel's dealings shaped not only Elvis's career, but his destiny. And the most heartbreaking truth is this: while Elvis gave his life to the stage, Parker was the one who pocketed the crown. By the summer of 1977, Elvis Presley was a man at war with himself. To his fans, he was still the king adored, idolized, and expected to perform night after night with the same energy that had once electrified the world. But behind the gates of Graceland, a very different Elvis lived, one exhausted, weighed down by illness, and clinging desperately to the music that had always saved him. The final months of his life were a mixture of routine and chaos. His health was visibly deteriorating, bloated from years of prescription drug dependency, struggling with high blood pressure, liver problems, and chronic pain. Yet his calendar was full. Colonel Parker kept him touring, signing contracts, and, tied to commitments Elvis no longer had the strength to fulfill. The king who once danced across stages now sometimes needed help just to walk to the microphone. Still, when the spotlight hit, something extraordinary happened. In June of 1977, at Rapid City, South Dakota, Elvis sat at a piano and performed Unchained Melody. His voice trembled but soared, and in that moment he reminded the world of who he truly was, not just a fading star, but a man capable of turning pain into beauty. It was one of his last great gifts, a performance so raw that it still moves audiences today. Away from the stage, Elvis's life grew lonelier. His marriage to Priscilla had ended, though they remained connected through their daughter, Lisa Marie, whom Elvis adored. His home, Graceland, became both a sanctuary and a prison. Friends described him wandering the halls late at night, dressed in pajamas, singing gospel hymns at the piano until dawn. The boy who once sang in a small Mississippi church never left him. Deep down, he longed for peace, faith, and redemption. The darkest secret of Elvis's final days was the extent of his dependency on medication. Prescribed by doctors who catered to his every request, his bathroom cabinets overflowed with pill stimulants. To wake him, sedatives to sleep, and countless others to numb the pain. To the outside world, he was strong, charismatic, and unbreakable. Inside, his body was breaking. On August 16, 1977, the world awoke to the unthinkable. Elvis Presley was gone at just 42 years old. Official reports cited heart failure, but the underlying truth was harder to face. His body had simply given out under years of pressure, abuse, and exhaustion. The king of rock and roll, who had seemed eternal, had been mortal all along. Yet even in death, Elvis's secrets endured. Stories whispered among the Memphis Mafia, lost love letters tucked away in private collections, unfinished songs scribbled in notebooks, hidden truths about his manager, his health, his relationships, fragments of a man history was never meant to fully know. What remains is a legacy both luminous and tragic. Elvis Presley revolutionized music, bridged racial divides with his voice, and gave joy to millions. But behind the legend was a man burdened by secrets, struggling with demons, and yearning for something the world could never give him: freedom from being Elvis. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, that the king, adored by everyone, was also a prisoner of his own crown. Elvis Presley's life was filled with music, glory, and love, but also with secrets the world was never meant to know. Behind the crown was not just a king, but a man searching for peace. His voice may have left us in 1977, but his truth still echoes today. What do you think was Elvis's greatest untold story? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the King's legacy alive together.